And this is what I do at work. Gee, a little bit messy. Just a little bit, eh? So, computer technician, surveillance technician, and a whole pile of other junk. Very boring for some people. Okay, so seeing it's a very, very slow day. I was just working on a couple dinosaurs, if you know what I mean. A couple other dinosaurs. Decided I'll make building computers, or building a computer for dummies style video. That is the case I'm going to be using. So it's nothing too fancy. Just a basic case. She looks pretty decent, and it's sent out of focus. Anything's going to look better than this case here that I'm using for my tech computer. So that's just in a crappy ass i3, so nothing too fancy. Some of the components I'm going to be using in it. It's going to be a cheaper computer. I'm going to try to keep the value of the entire computer $400 to $500. I'm going to be using the X4640, which is a decent processor. I'm trying to look, 3 GHz true dual core design. I have used this in quite a few computers, including at the time when it first came out, a higher end computer, and it's actually a pretty decent chip. This is a pretty cheap video card. It only retails for about $30. This chip retails for about $79, I think. So yeah, this is about a $30 video card. Nothing too major. 1 gig DDR3. It's made by Power Color, which is kind of a generic brand in my opinion. The board I'm going to be using is a BioStar. That is the model number right there. So it has pretty decent reviews. This is a sub $50 board, so $49. Sometimes you see them for $39. So I know it's recommended for only 4 cores, but I am going to try a socket AM2 6 core, which is kind of hard to see, but it's way at the end of the wall there. It's an OEM one. If I update the BIOS, it might recognize the 6 core. If not, I'll be using this chip. Get a view of this board. It is, again, a low-end board. You can see it's a very tiny board here. It does have onboard video, audio, and no USB 3, which sucks because I'm going to be using a USB 3 case. As for the power supply, I'm going to be using this one here. It's an Ultra 600. It's, again, an entry-level power supply. Very cheap. My goal is to have this system completely done, ready to go for $399, and then depending on what operating system, probably end up being $499. As for the hard drive, I'm still kind of deciding if I want to use a 1 terabyte, 2 terabyte, or maybe even a 250 gig solid state or a 120 gig solid state. Of course, that'll change the price a little tiny bit, but not by a hell of a lot. Solid states are dirt cheap right now. So as I go along, I'm going to do a video update. This is the case I'm going to be going for. So Corsair. It's nothing too fancy. I'm going to be starting to build this in the next half an hour or so. So yeah, I'll videotape everything. And right now it hasn't been that busy, so that's why I'm doing it. If it gets busy, it might be put on the side for a while. Sweet. Okay, so first thing you want to do is look at what cables you got to work with. Fan, USB 3 port, front panel audio, and your power LED, hard drive LED, reset switch, and power switch. And of course, it normally comes with a box of junk. And on this board here, it doesn't support the front panel USB 3 or USB 3 at all. So basically, I'm going to be removing the USB 3 front port from there, and I'm going to be installing a USB 2 one. So in most cases, just have the pop buttons on the side there, And you could technically unpop them from the other side, or just do what I did. You just pop right out. I don't have much room here because I'm kind of doing other shit back there. So now I'm going to pop this apart, pop these out, and swap them for a USB 2.0 setup. So, nice fan on the front, nice one on the back, none on the top, and of course power supply goes there. Lots of options for fans in this case, and even solid state bay. So now for the fun part. It's actually fairly easy. Start the camera again once I get that all taken apart. Just 2 screws. Actually 3, I lied. Center one. Right there. Okay. So there we go. They're actually in there pretty tight. So just gotta pull that wire back out. That will be used for a different case or computer. Okay, so this is what I'm going to be replacing it with. It's just a basic universal USB front mount cable. I'll just be chopping off the corners here, make it fit into the factory setup. I know there's not much light here. Actually, a good idea. Got this light here, courtesy of the Winnipeg RCMP that happened to leave it here one day. So yes, so I'll be modifying them to fit in there. So it'll just be a few seconds. And anyone cares what the part number is, you can pretty much buy these on eBay pretty much anywhere for like under $5 a piece. So, and of course if you have USB on your board, or if your case has USB 3, then you don't have to worry about switching it. But right now, surprisingly, we're down to either this case or some generic Chinese cases, which they look pretty ugly. So that's why I'm using this one. So I should technically be using a little bit of a better motherboard in it, but it's going to be our sub $500 system. So okay, just mount that all in, and I'll start to tape once it's in. Okay, so it took less than a minute, and I trimmed that down to be pretty much the same idea as this one here. It's a little bit thinner to fit into there. So, and I have done this before with one of these other cases. It does work great. So, and it fits in, everything works great. And there you go. You can see they fit perfectly in there. And all I gotta do is put on the cover, 2 screws, mount it back in place, stick back in my LEDs, which bounced out of there, and it's technically ready to go. Well, ready to be finished, that is. Sweet. And there we go. Yes, that's 2 memory sticks zip tied together with tape in between them. Hey, at least I don't lose them. So pretty much, you can see now, they're all aligned, everything looks good, they both work. And again, another reason why I didn't want to modify them is because this is for resale, and I didn't want the blue ends. So, you know, people see blue, they think USB 3. This is not. This way they can still plug in a USB 3 device, of course, it just won't be USB 3 speeds. So, now for the next part is I'm going to actually zip tie on these hooks here, these cables along the back side, and I'm going to come out through there and through here so it can all connect to the bottom of the motherboard. So, and for installing the motherboard, all your standoffs here, depending on when your board was made, normally you don't have to change them. You just leave them all in the stock position and it's just going to fit. So, and this one has even a little pin here to hold your board while you're installing it. And of course put in your back panel. It's fairly simple to do that. Worst thing you can ever do is install your board somehow where you got one of these pushing on the back of your board, or a small one and then a big one. But again, on all modern, newer boards, you do not have to worry about that. They just work. So, okay. So I'll install the board, which is this little tiny baby board here, in that huge ass case. Kind of to get a better view from behind here. So, yes, normally we'd use a higher end board, but again, this is a very cheap computer that I'm putting together. So I'll toss in my back panel here. And yes, it's kind of messy here. I'm not really set up the best to do this. Look at all the garbage underneath there, hey? Gee, How messy is that, eh? So that is the fancy ass panel. Very, very tiny. Keyboard ports always face up. So I always bend my tabs out of the way, of course. So, and what I'm realizing is for some reason they did not pop out the audio tabs. These holes here for the audio were not popped out for the back of that board. So just give me a second. I'm going to have to pause the camera and pop those out. It's kind of weird. Okay, and there we go. And as for these, they just pop right in. Of course, from the inside, not the outside. I'm just using this as an example. So swap hands here. Still in focus. Yep. So basically, you don't want to get any cables stuck. That fucking fan cable's getting in my way. And basically, they should just snap into place. I'm going to have to put the camera down for a second here. There we go. So just like that, they just snap into place. Very, very simple. And now for the fun part, putting in your motherboard. So, and in my case, I'm going to install my chip before I put in the board, and might as well install the RAM. Okay, and normally it is a good idea to have like some kind of static guard under the board when you're working on it. You can see this board does have some solid capacitors at least, so it's not all too bad. Couple old school ones around there. Again, very, very cheap board. Put it in, you just lift your rod. That sounded cool. Or funny. Take your chip, make sure you don't have any greasy fingers. Do not touch any of the pins. If you bend those pins, it's going to be a pain in the butt. And basically, you got the 4 squares on the center, and then you got the corners. So basically, you got to line it up in a way that they all line up. So you can see here, I got those lined up with that. So I'm going to just flip it like this, and it's going to be perfectly lined up. Of course, don't force it; it'll fall right into place. It's kind of hard doing it all with my left hand, but that's into place. Push this down. Sometimes you hear a bad noise or crunchy noise. Not as bad as Intel's. Intel's, you just freaking sounds like you're killing it when you put that down. Then for your heatsink, I always remove the center sticker. So a lot of people won't, but I do. The reason why I do it is because they never, no matter what, put the sticker on center. And I have seen the stickers actually fly off, get stuck in the fan, and because it's not balanced, in my opinion, with a crooked sticker. And if you have Arctic Silver, you might want to wipe that off, put some Arctic Silver on it. Even though what they're actually using nowadays on CPU coolers are pretty decent. Don't be cheap and use any ice fusion like that. That stuff's just cheap shit. It's white, it's not silver. And pretty much to put this on, you're just going to set it on top. Again, doing it with my left hand. Release it with your lever. Push this into that little groove, just like that. I'm going to flip the board. If I was doing it with my other hand, it'd be a lot easier. This is just going to push into here. Just like that. And now you're going to flip this lever. And of course, center it first. I normally give it a little bit of a wiggle like that before I do it, just to make sure you got a good seat. I have to hold the camera here to do this. There. So it took a little bit of force, of course, to do that. And again, I usually give it a little bit of a wiggle, just like I'm doing now. Nothing too much, just to try to get the grease smeared in there nicely. Now, of course, you want to plug in your fan. That's extremely important. You normally have 2 fan connectors on a good board. This one only has a single one, so. And of course, route it where it's not going to get stuck in your fan. So you can go through a heat pipe, however you want to do it. Zip tie it. And of course, you want to make sure you never plug it in crooked. Always make sure it's perfectly straight. Otherwise, you're not going to have a good working fan. I'm going to be taping this, or zip tying it to the P4 connector when I run it. So for now, I'm going to leave it open. So now for installing the RAM, well, that's super simple. Pull these back, and you push your RAM in, and they self-close. Now some Intels only have clips on one side. You just kind of push in one corner and then push in the other side. So just be a second, I'll grab the RAM and I'll throw it in. Okay, so the RAM I'm using on this, to show the specs on it, nothing too fancy. It's an 8 gig set. Been using this RAM now for a couple years. Never had an issue. And again, using my left hand, it's going to be a pain in the butt to get them out of there. I don't want to pull up on the heatsink, so just give me a second. There we go. Just dump them out. So, have a fancy little heatsink on them, nothing too important. And of course, you can see there's a little tab in the center there, and a tab in the center on your RAM stick. Well, it's not really center, but, and pretty much, again, using my left hand. Now what you want to do is have it on a flat surface, and one finger, or one hand there, and push down equal. You do not want to do one side at a time. See if I can do it with my left hand without breaking it. There's one side, there's the other side. So, and basically always after I do that, I just kind of give it a little bit of a wiggle just like this, make sure it's secured. You don't want to flex it, just a little bit of a wiggle. It's just what I've always been doing. And of course, the next one, exact same way. Again, with my left hand, it's kind of hard. I'd hate to lose my right hand. And that one didn't quite clip in all the way, so just double check, give them a little bit of flex. And now that board is ready to go in. So now for the board, normally you'll want to not be holding the camera when you're doing it. Want to line it up so everything lines up. Now in this case, the case has, I know I'm shaking pretty bad, but I'm holding it with my left hand. This case has a little pin here by my thumb, which I'll push it onto the pin. See how it's holding it with the pin? So normally you don't want to trust that. Normally you'll want to put the other screws in immediately, but in my case I'm going to trust it. Now what you'll want to do is look at the back here, make sure everything is lined up center, everything is lined up good. Same with when you're putting your screws in, because believe it or not, when you're putting in your screws, sometimes you got to leave them all loose and you actually got to turn your board side to side for all your ports to line up. So you can see on this one here, the Ethernet port looks like it's, I don't know, everything looks to be good. I can't really show my head back there, pretty much over here, but should be good. So now I'm going to put in some screws. I'm not going to videotape putting in the screws. As for what kind of screws I'm going to use just whatever comes in the kit. These little guys right here. And then they got the ones for the CD-ROM drive. So in this case, I'm not even going to put in a DVD drive. Not too many people use them anymore. That'll be an option for the customer if they need it. We do have Blu-ray drives or whatever else, but I'm not going to bother. Most people don't want them. So, okay. Just be a few seconds and I'll get this going. Okay, so I just noticed this board is so low end that it only has one fan connector, which I'm going to plug into that front fan there, and I'm actually going to remove the back fan. Temporary. I might be reinstalling it with a Molex to fan connector. Don't think I'll need the back fan there. The system's not going to run hot whatsoever. Still got to peel off the sticker here. So this one's coming off in a few pieces, so do that off camera, as you can see. Basically now I'm going to be plugging in my connections. The only bad thing about using that USB adapter is you can see how long these cables are. They are 5 feet long. So yes, that kind of sucks, but I will tie them all up nicely in the corner. I'm not going to run the cables behind here just because of where the board sits. Normally you'd come out from under here to the bottom of the board here, but in this case this is a little tiny baby board, so it's no gaming computer. So yes, I'm going to be hooking up these. Basically you got your reset switch, which is going to go down here. Of course, check your manual if you're not sure where to go. The power switch is always going to go normally right above it. And of course, doing it with my left hand. And you got your power LED. So that's going to go at the top. You got your negative over here. looks like I skipped one. If you put them in a wrong spot, it's not going to do any damage on this. It's just not going to work your LEDs. I think I need to skip one on there. I'm not going to check the manual, I'm just going to hook it up. So it's one of these two top ports always. So your negative normally faces it. Now for the hard drive LED, normally goes directly below it, hard drive LED. So sometimes it's a little bit different, but normally that's where how they go. And then you got the speaker wires and a secondary hard drive LED. That's if you actually, this one just has the single hard drive LED. Then you got your HD audio. It can only go in one way. Goes up here. You can see the pin configuration has a, if I could focus, has a block, and there you got missing a pin, so it only goes in one way. So some people actually don't plug those in, they leave them unplugged just so they don't interfere with the back ones. Newer boards, you don't have an issue with that. It's just the older boards that was an issue. And then I'd run those all nicely with a, hopefully I got a black SATA cable in there. Yes, I do. So nice black SATA cable going to the solid state, which will just go into one of those spots. I was initially going to run a 2 terabyte drive in here, like saying it's going to be more for multimedia use. I might be tossing in, can't really see it there, but I got a, oh, I can't even see any of the video cards. Oh, a GT610 EVGA card. So it has a display port, mini HDMI, full DVI, pretty much everything on it. So someone, I might just toss that in here for the hell of it. Depends on what it rates. With the standard onboard video, which is going to be horrible. Chip will help, of course. So yeah, now I'm going to hook up my SATA cables. That's pretty simple, and I'll start the video once I get all that hooked up. One more thing I almost forgot, because the cables are actually touching the dirty floor. USB cables. So some of them are miscellaneous colored. Some of them, like this, are not even labeled what's positive, what's negative. The black always goes towards the front of the computer. So it's just going to plug in just like that. Of course, try not to do it without holding. So red, white, green, black. Sometimes you'll see red, yellow, green, black. And that would be on very old generic cases mostly. And of course, you're going to plug it in the same way. So just like that. And just thought I'd put that on the video instead of just doing it. Okay. Okay, so that's pretty much it for the cable management. That's for the front fan. All the other cables come in from the top. I did run a spare SATA cable. I'm not going to be a dick and leave it without, in case a guy wants to put in a DVD drive. Yes, it looks like that sticks out a little bit far, but yes, there's more than enough room for the lid to go on and for it not to vibrate or anything like that. And of course, zip ties do expire. So yes, when you pull them tight, ends of cases could be a little bit sharp. Flip it around here with my left hand without scratching it. So you can see on this side how I did it. Just basic. I'm not going to take my time making it too neat, not on a cheap computer like this. So now I got the cable here for the solid state. Leave it nice and loose. This one here will be for the top DVD drive. It's a little bit of a snug fit, but it's going to fit up there. Next is going to be to install the solid state. Now you might be wondering by now, why haven't I installed a power supply? The reason why is because power supplies don't last forever. They need to be changed from time to time. So I always like to zip tie everything before it and not just zip tie everything together, because that just opens a can of worms if someone's trying to replace it. I got a few zip ties like that one there just to trim, but that's not too big of a deal. So yes, now I'm going to unpack the solid state, and that's the power supply, and a Samsung Series 840, which means cheap. If I remember right, this one here, the read-write speed's pretty pitiful. You can see them right there. So write speed, Stop shaking here. So write speed is only 130, read speed is 530. So very fast at the read speed, but the write speed is pretty horrible. So normally you want to try to find a solid state that's around 480, 480, something along that lines. Now I haven't had this box open yet, so I'm going to have to pause the camera and use my sandblasted Leatherman. Yes, sandblasted. So just give me a second, I'll start the camera once I get that open. Okay, so it comes with some random paperwork, which is pretty much useless, don't need to read it, and a software and a manual CD. Gee, who's going to run that software, hey? So I have never actually seen a solid state that comes with a driver CD. So it's actual, not a driver CD, it's manual and software. So, and the drive itself is a little bit skinnier, and I'm surprised. Normally they come with a plate that you put on with the drive to make it fit a laptop. Because right now you put that into a laptop and it's going to rattle around and be a little bit loose. Yeah, it doesn't come with any kind of plate, which kind of sucks. So let's see how it fits in here. Again, with my left hand, gotta pull this tab up here, and that was off the camera. Okay, so yes, so I'll have to grab it with my other hand and push it in there. Oh, no, it's going. There we go, locked in place. And that is a pretty pitiful fit for a solid state. Gee, way to go, Samsung. So yes, I'm going to use some rubber. I got some rubber mats, so I'm going to get a little bit of a tighter fit out of that. So just give me a few seconds. Okay, so you can see there how I just put in a little chunk of, if I could focus the camera here, it's just my iPhone. So there you go, you can see how I mounted just the first one of those little rubbers on there. So I'm going to be mounting other ones like that. Oop, and I popped it off. Stuck to my finger now. So I'll start the camera once I get them all on and get it inside, and hopefully it makes a better fit. Now there is technically nothing spinning, so there's not going to be any vibration, but I still don't like seeing a loose fit like that. It's just horrible in my opinion. Okay, so the drive's in, nice and tight. It's much better than having to drive loose. This is about, so far, maybe not even half an hour from the time I grabbed everything, putting it together. Just got interrupted building it by this dick. So he gave me a random phone call. Anyone who knows him, he's the guy that gets pranked on or was getting pranked on Dave's farm, you know, the zip tie on the drive shaft and shit like that. So he just was bored, I guess, gave me a random phone call, and customer coming in, so I gotta go. Okay, so this is the power supply I'm putting in. It's a bare basic power supply. You can pick these up under 50 bucks. A lot of times you'll see them for 39, 49 bucks, whatever. This is the bare minimum what I'd recommend to put into a custom built computer. Some people like to use the cheap generic ones like that, which only last a year or two, where these ones here you should be able to get, you know, 5-year warranty or 5 years out of them. Has a big 120 mil fan. Product registration, if you want to register your lifetime warranty. Normally I do not even recommend doing that, because chances are it'll cost you more in shipping than it's worth. Hey, it even comes with screws, how nice, eh? Power cord. And of course, just a bare basic power supply. So it's nothing too fancy, doesn't even come with a fancy sticker. Just a bare OEM, well not OEM because it comes in a box, but basic power supply. So this is installed, very, very basic power supply, and I just got cut off again from my last video because I'm in the middle of dealing with shipping Pug 1 some cameras and deciding which ones to send them. So I had to stop and text message for a bit, but you got your basic motherboard connector, has the 4+ pin on the side, and of course I gotta grab that phone, so I'll be back in just a second. Okay, so now that I'm done with the phone call, which always seems to interrupt me, you got your basic 8-pin motherboard connector, and it has a 4-pin off the side, P4 connector. You got the 24-pin connector, which goes right into your board. So in my case, I'm going to run them through here and up on top there. You do got your PCI Express 6-pin connector, SATA connectors, and a few Molex connectors. And it actually even has the 5 volt or whatever voltage, I can't remember. No, it has 5 and 12 volt floppy drive connector, which surprisingly, actually some fan controllers I've been seeing is using this now. So basically I'm going to hook them up, and then I'll explain where I plugged them all in just a few seconds. So it may look confusing, but it's stupidly simple. One more thing I thought I'd say, it's kind of hard to focus with the light here, but that is your 4-pin P4 connector. Some of them are 8-pin. Depending on how your system's set up, you don't always have to run an 8-pin. Like if you see on this board here, it's kind of hard to see there, but you can see right there, getting the fan with my camera. You see it right there, you can see that I got only 4 out of the 8 pins hooked up. You can do that. It all depends on your board and if you have a video card. In this case here, there's no video card hooked up to there, so I can do it. If you're running a video card and everything, you will want to give it full power. So I just thought I'd say that. But whenever you're buying a power supply, make sure it has the 8-pin connector and the 4-pin. So, and if you only have a 4-pin, technically you can get the adapter to send power to both of them, but that's kind of a waste. Now you'll see how I mounted this fan with the fan aiming up like that. It's no different than when you mount it on the top of your case. On this case, you can actually mount it facing the bottom, so it blows out of one of those vents. But if you look, there is not much clearance, and the reason why I don't do it and most people won't do it is because if someone puts this on a carpeted floor, it's going to not breathe, because the carpet is going to just fill in these and you're going to overheat your computer. So this case, the way it's made, I can easily spin this around. If you look the way it is, you do not see what kind of power supply it is, because the label is actually on that side of the power supply. So I'd see it from the back side there. So a lot of people look at this, think, oh, well, it's in wrong, which some people do spin them around. It all depends on your case design. But also, if I put this spun around, you see how I had to run this just up and open? If I spun it backwards, the cable would be coming out of here, and there would be enough room to go under and up to here. But right now, there's not enough room to run this cable under here and up. So I just thought I'd mention that. Look at how much clearance you have if you're going to be mounting your power supply upside down. So all that's left now is to plug in the 4-pin connector, which again is this guy right here, which plugs right into there. And then I just got the connector, SATA connector for here, and that is it. So I'll start the camera in just a few seconds. Okay, so I decided for the hell of it, I'll toss in standard DVD-RW. It's an LG 24 times. It's not a Blu-ray burn or anything like that. They are dirt cheap. They only cost like $17 or 20 bucks. You can get them for some places 25, 29. It all depends on the exact model number and if it's LG or Light-On or who makes it. So I'm going to toss it in for the 20 bucks it costs, because otherwise I'll probably end up tossing it in anyway. I just kind of like the finished look of the case without a DVD-RW, but whatever, toss it in just for the hell of it. Okay, so everything is done. Cable management I didn't really care too much about. There's no window on this case, it's just a solid black window, so just zip tied pretty much everything in its standard locations. Now this power supply sucks because there's only one SATA connector there and one up there, not enough to get to solid state and a DVD drive. So I shouldn't have installed a DVD drive and I would have been fine, but I had to use a Molex to SATA adapter, which is perfectly fine. There's no problem doing that. The exact same voltage, everything's exactly the same. So a little solid state there, and there's plenty of Molex connectors on here. I mean, there's probably like at least 5, 6 of them that aren't being used. So, and another thing I was mentioning before is about the PCI Express power. This one has it, but if you don't have it, you can actually use these. So this is a PCI Express to Molex adapter, which I don't normally recommend, but a lot of people have used these and had good luck with them. If your fan speed's too quick, you can always toss in one of these. It just turns the voltage down. There's a low resistor in there. It cuts your fan speed by about 35% or so. We have ones that cut them by 50%, some of them that only do 10%. Just thought I'd show that. It just goes in line. In this case, it would go right on the bottom there where the fan plugs in. Right there. So that's if I wanted to, but I'm sure this fan's going to be fine. So now, what's left now? Put on the side covers, install Windows. Oh, and if you're wondering how I was going to install Windows without a DVD drive, I was just going to sit one on top here, do it like that, then remove it. So now for the fun part, testing it. So got my power. Make sure it's in the right spot. It's kind of hard with my left hand. Got my video. And somewhere in this mess I got a mouse, which is already going to that system. So then where did my other mouse go? I see it. It's on the dirty floor. Yes, I need to clean it up here. A little bit messy back here. So of course plug in the mouse. And the keyboard. I didn't need to let you guys see all this because it's pretty boring. So then the keyboard. And now for the fun part, hitting the power button. Check which one's the power. Right there. So of course the power LED is working up there. This one right there. It's hard to see with the flash. And of course it's always a good idea to update your BIOS before you install Windows. That way you get all the proper support and everything like that. And that wasn't a fart. That was just that. Always update the BIOS. Very good idea. You can do it right from a USB stick. Just go to the manufacturer's site, download the file, stick it on the memory stick. Normally you don't even have to format the memory stick. Just shove it on there. Then you boot to USB device and it just automatically opens the BIOS update. Very simple to do. Just thought I'd post that in the video. Now, it's going to automatically say there's no operating system found. That's kind of cool how it shows your fan speed, your chip, and everything else. So pretty much it's normally from the factory just set to boot from CD. This case here, I'll have to actually find the CD for it, so just give me a second. Okay, got my CD in. Give it a boot. If I can find a power switch. And of course I got my switch off. Don't knock my Monster. Have to drink those, you know. Without those you go nuts. So see, automatically from the factory boots to the CD, so you don't have to change it. That's the way I've been finding almost every board made within the last 2 years. They automatically set to boot to CD. Saves the hassle of going into the BIOS changing it. Just give me a second here. I can find my mouse. Okay, so it's got some crap going on up there. So yes, I'm not going to show you how to load the operating system because basically it's extremely easy. You just click next, pretty much to everything. There's really no point of explaining it. You put in the CD, as long as you could boot from the CD, you're good. It'll ask you for the product key, set the date, set your location, time zone, and pretty much go nuts. And then after you're done, you put in the CD that came with your motherboard and load the drivers. So even though Windows 7 says you have all the drivers installed correctly, a lot of times your video drivers are generic drivers that they just run with. You always want to run your motherboard CD. You don't have to install all the crap programs that come on it. Just tell it to scan the CD for drivers. So that's going to be the end of this video here. Again, the video was more or less the building part of it, putting it together. It's complete right now. All I got to do is put on the side covers. I don't need to show you that. And everything's working. And yeah, there we go. Maybe I'll make a glimpse of when I get this system completely finished and I have a price tag on it. just so I can get an overview of everything that's in it. Okay, sweet. Okay, so one more thing I thought I'd say about this computer, for anyone that's thinking of building one themselves, it is extremely easy, for one, but the main thing you got to think of is when you're building a computer, the cost of the components. So let's start off with, that's 8 gigs of RAM. It has heat sinks on it, so that is an 8 gigabyte dual channel kit. So the price difference between that RAM and generic RAM without heat sinks is maybe $5 more. So for $5 more, you know, getting memory with heat sinks is well worth the $5. Now there is better memory, of course, better clock speeds, timing. All depends what you do with the system. You get what you pay for. That's pretty much how I'm going to say that. As for the CPU cooler, AMD CPU coolers I find are actually very decent. I find they do a much better job at cooling over the cheap Intel ones. It's up to you if you want to change it, but you can get some pretty decent aftermarket coolers for like $40. One other thing I'm going to mention is if you're looking for a motherboard, right there is what's called a solid capacitor, and that is a standard capacitor. Normally you don't want to touch them when it's on, but I barely touch that one. Basically, a solid capacitor is going to last say 5 years at least, and a standard capacitor 2 to 5 years. So I have seen solid capacitors, of course, blow normally on video cards by all the high heat area. You can see them up there. There is a couple standard ones here, but now with the new technology, new boards, there should be no reason to get at least 5 years out of almost any board. But of course, if you see one with pure solid capacitors, that is going to be your best bet. Now this is not a full-size board. It all depends on what you want to do with your computer. So it kind of sucks that this one doesn't have front panel USB. As you've seen in the video, I had to change it, or front panel USB 3. So I had to just put in the standard USB 2 here. You might want to find a board that has front panel USB 3, but then you need to find a case for it. Now for the power supply, this is only like a $39 power supply, which is actually fairly decent. But it only has 2 SATA connectors. Might have a third one in here, but I don't see it anywhere. But you might want to think when you buy a power supply, this is $40. Look and see what you could get for $20 more. You could get one with all the different modular ends that unplug. That is in your way, like such a better deal. Then you don't usually have this big mess of cables. You only plug in what you need, and normally you have more than enough connectors for almost anything. Now onto the solid state. That is just a cheap Samsung $100, like $100 for that drive. So you pay $100. It's a 120 gig. Sounds like a good deal. But then if you look and see what you can get for $120, $1 a gigabyte, you could get one of the Kingston drives, the X350, or I can't even remember the model. But some of the Kingston ones, let's say, they have a 480 read, 480 write. Where this one here is only a 480 read and a 130 write. So it is quite a bit of a slower drive. But again, it all depends what you're going to be doing with it. If you're doing HD videos, normally you'd want a minimum of what's in here for this drive, but of course the faster the better. Again, for the motherboard, this is a $50 motherboard. A $60 or even a $70 motherboard would have so many more options. It's well worth looking at, like if you try to buy the cheapest of the cheap, you're going to get a system like this pretty much. So of course when it comes to power supplies and RAM, normally stick with a brand name. As for the case, Corsair makes very nice cases. This case only retails for about $59. So there's the model number on it, to 200R. So it's a very decent case for the price. For fans, the more fans the better. In this case I got one on the front and one on the CPU and then one on the power supply. That is more than enough. This case originally came with another one at the back here, but then I'd have to put a Molex to fan adapter, and to be honest, this computer's not going to run hot enough to even need that back fan. So that's the board that's in it. It's a cheap Biostar. I was thinking of installing that video card, Radeon HD 5450. But I'm going to also see once it's done installing what it rates in what the rating is in Windows, And yes, we're just installing Windows 7. I do not recommend Windows 8. I hate it, but that's all up to you. So yes, just thought I'd do a little bit of an overview here. This is going to be a very long and very boring video, and hopefully you learned something from it. I've been working at this computer store. I'm kind of in the corner here. You know what I mean? Kind of hard to see everything here, but I've been in my cubicle here working, doing computer stuff now for over 7 years. I have built, well, probably close to 1,000 computers, maybe even more. I lost track. So I'm by far no expert, of course. We normally deal with the low-end $500 computers. The odd time we go crazy and build a $1,500, $2,000 computer. Like just last week, I built a very, very high-end one for Woodcock Cycle down the street, which is not a motorcycle shop. They're a bicycle shop. Very great place to go to buy bikes. So just thought I'd mention that. So they went for pretty much premium everything, top of the line, commercial grade. I should have made a video on that computer. It would have been a lot more interesting than this one. But most people that are looking at building their own computer, they want to build it cheap and they want to stick it to around 500 bucks. This entire build here is under 500 bucks. So that's the end of this video, and I'm not going to be putting too many videos like this on my channel, just the odd time when I get a chance to do them. Okay, sweet. Installing updates. Gee, doesn't that take forever? You gotta hate that. It's all up and running. Everything's done. And Windows is installed. I'm just doing updates. All the drivers are updated. Drivers are installed. Another customer brought in a hard drive that's half dead. So doing a data recovery. And then going to put everything back into this case here. So, and yeah, that's pretty much it.